What this will do is, let's say I'm working with a Cold Fusion site. Cold Fusion is a way to work with a backend file. If I'm working with a site that needs some interactivity and a database, I am probably going to need to set up a testing server. So I would set up my testing server so I can actually see what those pages are doing in Dreamweaver. If I don't set up a testing server, I can't actually see what's going on with my files. I'll see that it is, let's say, a Cold Fusion file, and I'll see the elements that have Cold Fusion applied to them. The elements that don't have Cold Fusion applied to them, I actually will see in my window, but if I don't set up a testing server, I can't actually preview what those files are going to look like. We're going to go ahead and click on Cancel. We're not going to set up an FTP server at the moment. I also have version control. Version control is great. Dreamweaver uses Subversion, and it's been enhanced in CS5. I can click on Access and use Subversion. And again, we won't be setting this up at just the moment. We will after a while, but I can give my protocol, whether it's going to be HTTP, SVN, HTTPS, give it a server address, a repository path, username, and password, and I can test it. And this has, again, been enhanced for CS5. Since we won't be setting up Subversion right now, we're going to go back to our Access and say None for the moment, and go ahead and twirl down the arrow for your advanced settings. The first one is Local Info. So I can choose where my default images folder is going to be. Next, we'll look at relative links to. This is actually very important when working inside of Dreamweaver. Because you can accidentally move entire folders around, we want to make sure that your links are relative to your document and not to your site root. Your site root would then be your machine, where it's located at, what user, etc. And we don't want to accidentally move anything, and there are times when you need to move a folder. So that way our entire root folder can be moved to a different location. We can go back up to our normal site and tell Dreamweaver where that root folder is. But at least the files inside that we're working with are going to be relative to one another. So for instance, if I have my home page and my about page, if it's in the same directory, it's in the same root folder, the same file structure, then when I link to my about page from my home page, it's just going to be about.html or whatever your extension is. If it were relative to my site root, then it's going to be, again, your hard drive, what user you are, etc. And then things can be broken a whole lot easier. This is another place I can make sure I put my web URL, again, so that I can make sure that Dreamweaver can do my site reports, etc. I have a cloaking tab. My cloaking tab allows me to enable cloaking files ending with. And if I click this, I can see that I don't necessarily want to choose FLA, although I can use a PSD file. So if I delete that one, then only the files ending with FLA, and maybe I put AI in here for my Illustrator files. That way that I can't actually use those will be X'd out, and I won't be able to drag those into my design. Design notes. Design notes are a way, especially if I'm working with a remote group of people, a remote team, I can share notes that go along with particular files. I can attach them to files, so that way, let's say if I'm not done with my About page, I can add a design note to my About page that when they open it, that the note opens as well. I can maintain my design notes. I can clean up my design notes, because if I have a site that I'm now going to put up to a remote server, it's going to go live, I don't necessarily need all those design notes then. So Dreamweaver allows you to be able to clean those up, so they're not all on the server. My files view column. This is simply a way that I can move things around that I use the most. So I definitely want to see the name. I may have notes or I may not. Personally, I like being able to see my modified next. So if I then choose modified, I can move this up in my list, so then that is the next option next to my name. size, types, etc. And I could always add a column from here as well. My Contribute tab. If I enable Contribute, then it enables me to set up for whatever end user is going to be using Contribute the parts of the page that they can update themselves. Remember, we also have in-context editing, so you have your choice of whether you want to choose Contribute or in-context editing to help them set up those files. Certainly that's not your only choice, but those are your choices within Dreamweaver itself. If I have any templates, don't want to rewrite relative document paths, and simply if I have Spry and I want to use Spry widgets, I can specify where those assets are stored, and looks like they're stored just fine for now. So now I'm just going to click on my Save button. It's going to cache my site. I see that in this particular dialog box, I see my name in there now, and now I can click Done. In my Files panel, you'll now see all of my folders, etc. So we can see this a little bit better. I'm going to have you click on a button over on the right-hand side in that particular panel. This little button right here underneath where it says Local View At is going to expand my Files view. When I click on it, on the PC, it will take over my whole entire page. On the Mac, it will just open up in its own window. Now I can see my Remote Files view and my Local Files view.